In this video, I'm going to talk about how to get a good deal on a Toyota Tacoma. Now, whether you're looking at getting a used Tacoma or a new Tacoma, it can be a really difficult market to navigate because they have such high resale value and because Toyota doesn't really offer a lot of incentives on new vehicles. And so I want to give you some tips on how best to get the most out of your money, whether you're looking at a new Tacoma or a used Tacoma. So let's talk about new Tacomas first. First of all, if you're thinking about getting a new Tacoma, unlike a lot of vehicles, going with a new Tacoma is in some ways a pretty smart decision. Depreciation is really low on Tacomas, and you're going to find that in some cases you're paying pretty close to full new vehicle price when you go with a used one. And so there's a lot to be said for looking at a new vehicle on the Tacoma. It's not like a lot of other vehicles where you're going to take a huge hit in depreciation by going with a new vehicle. Now, Toyota is very well known for having very limited manufacturer's incentives on new vehicles. And that's one of the things that really contributes to great resale value is the fact that Toyota doesn't really discount the price as much on their new vehicles. Now, the reason that affects depreciation on used Tacomas is, let's say that you're looking at getting a new Ford pickup or a used Ford pickup. Well, a new one, let's say you can get it for $8,000 off the MSRP because of an incentive from the manufacturer. Well, all of a sudden, if you're looking at a used Ford F-150 and a new one, they're now discounting $8,000 off the MSRP. That means a used one, it's going to have to be at least $8,000 off the MSRP, plus, it's still going to have to be cheaper than a new one, and so you're going to be expecting a pretty significant difference there. With Toyotas, since they don't really cut the price that much for incentives, it means that you don't get those giant incentives applied on new vehicles that then affect the value of used ones. And so it's really good for resale value. Unfortunately, that means that it's hard to get a good deal on a new one. And so you're probably not going to get any incentives for a Tacoma. Toyota does offer incentives on some vehicles from time to time, but they're more popular vehicles like the Tacoma. It's very unlikely that you'll ever see an incentive for that. Now, dealers, on the other hand, do offer incentives. Those are still hard to come by, and a lot of dealers don't make that very public. They want people to be paying full price, and so they don't typically advertise that. But what you'll find is that there is an occasional Toyota dealer that will advertise incentive pricing, and most dealers will be willing to match that same pricing. And so for me, I live in Oregon, and we've got a dealer over in the Springfield, Eugene area, and they advertise very competitive pricing, including dealer incentives of $1,500 to $2,000 on a new Tacoma. When I shared that information with my local dealer in Central Oregon, they were willing to match the same pricing on the vehicle. If you went in off the bat and we're looking to get a discount without having another dealer matching the price, it's going to be a lot harder to probably get them to cut their price down. And so I'd recommend doing some research online and trying to find Tacomas that are discounted at another dealer that are somewhat close proximity, so that you can use that as kind of a bargaining chip to encourage the dealer that you're talking with to drop their price. And so, like I mentioned, doing pretty extensive research, you're basically looking at a maximum incentive of about $1,500 to $2,000 on a new Tacoma. It's going to be hard to get much more of an incentive than that, but it is something. And given the reputation that Toyota has for not discounting their vehicles at all, $1,500 to $2,000 is a win in my opinion. So where it gets really tricky getting a good deal on a Tacoma is when you start to look at used ones. Now, there's both private party sales and there's dealer sales, and a lot of people automatically assume that private party is always the way to go. And that's not necessarily the case. There's some dealers that actually will price their vehicles pretty fair. And then the other kind of flip side of that is that in the private party market, a lot of people overvalue their vehicles. And I mentioned that resale value on Tacomas is really good, and that causes certain private party individuals to just completely overinflate their prices and try to use that resale value to just ask for a price that's completely over the top for the market. And then it kind of escalates from there, where then let's say that you've got a couple people like that price their cars way more than what they're really worth because of the resale value. And then because then the next person that goes to list their truck sees, oh, there's a couple Tacomas listed in the market that are, at this price, my vehicle must be worth the same amount, or something relative to that, depending on the year and mileage and features and everything. And so then it inflates those prices. And so it's sort of like this domino effect a little bit, where because certain people inflate their prices, it kind of does that to the whole market. And in some ways it's a good thing for Tacoma owners because it inflates the prices overall. But the other side of that is that some of those Tacomas that are way overinflated never sell, and certainly don't sell at those prices. And so if you're in the market looking to buy one used, you just have to be a little bit careful that you do a very broad search, look in different markets. Say you live in a state and there's a couple big cities, look at the the Craigslist or the Auto Trader listings in those different markets, and try to look at the states that are kind of around you, and see if you can find certain markets that maybe are a little more inflated than others, and you might be able to find a market where you can get one for a little better deal. And then it will also give you really a more accurate and true assessment of what the value is of a specific Tacoma. And so that's kind of the advice there, is just to be very cautious and do a very thorough search to see what's out there. The other thing that is worth doing if you're buying a used Tacoma is comparing it to the price of a new one. Don't automatically assume that because you're buying a used Tacoma that the pricing is going to be competitive versus a new one. Take a look at the new ones, see what you can get for those. I mentioned earlier that you can typically get a Tacoma for about $1,500 to $2,000 off the MSRP if you find a dealer that's willing to negotiate at all. And so, for example, my 2016 Tacoma, when I was searching, a new one I could get for about $35,000 with crew cab long bed. And I ended up buying a used one from the dealer, actually, and I paid about $32,000. But that was in part because it had a lot more options, and then it had about 25,000 miles on it. And so it depends a little bit on what options you're looking to get. But really what I found was, okay, I could get a Tacoma that's fully loaded, used, or I could get a brand new one with no miles on it. That was sort of the trade-off there. But what you're going to see too is, even if you go to the previous generation of the Tacoma, a lot of those right now are listed well over $30,000, and you can get a new one for somewhere between $33,000 and $40,000, depending on the options that you get. And so, it's worth comparing those and deciding, okay, yeah, maybe the used one is cheaper, but if it's got 40 or 50,000 miles on it, is it worth going with that one versus getting a new one and having no miles on it? So it's important to compare that when you're looking as well. Now, probably the most important thing when you're searching for a Tacoma, or really any vehicle for that matter, is that patience is key. It's really important that you do that broad market research to figure out what a specific vehicle is worth, and getting an idea of what values are at, depending on the configuration of the vehicle, the mileage, condition, all of that. But then once you have a pretty good understanding of what they're worth, patience is going to be key. You've got to wait until the right one comes on the market. Don't assume that your only options are what are available right now. Try to plan accordingly so that you have a little bit of flexibility where you can decide on what you want, and then you can sit and you can wait, and wait for a few weeks or for a few months and just see what comes up on the market and continue to check it. And then along with that patience, what's really key is that you've got to be on top of it as far as keeping an eye on what's out there. So when a good deal comes available, especially on something like a Tacoma, where it's really hard to find a good value on one, you've got to be ready to jump, and you've got to be the first one to contact. So when a really good deal on a Tacoma comes up, you've got to be ready to go look at it right away, have money in hand or financing prepared, and then if it's a good deal, don't wait. That's one of the real keys with these kinds of vehicles like Tacomas, where they're in really high demand and it's hard to find a good one at a good price. What you need to do is, be ready to make a decision right away when the opportunity presents itself. Now, obviously, if you're buying a new one, there's some more flexibility with that because they're going to continue to produce them, and hopefully the pricing is going to be pretty stable there. But with a used vehicle, if you're trying to find a very specific Tacoma at a good price, it's hard to find that, and so just be prepared to jump when the time comes. So whether you're in the market for a new or used Toyota Tacoma, I hope that some of the tips that I've offered in this video will be helpful, and I wish you the best of luck finding a Tacoma for the best value. If you've got any comments, leave them in the section below, and for more videos on the Toyota Tacoma, subscribe to my channel. In the meantime, thanks for watching.